Hi everyone, this is Azita, and in this video I want to address one simple activity you can do with your child so she or he does not get traumatized and show the sign of PTSD. It's a very simple activity, but it's based on very profound element in psychology, which is action, taking an action. But before I continue, I want to tell you to, if you can watch the previous video of mine, which has the same outfit, so probably you can identify it with the same thing, which gives you some tips of around 15 tips of what to do and not to do in the time of riots and looting and this coronavirus, that the fear is extremely high. So after that, this is sort of like a addition to that video that will help you do something that is really profound, and that is making an art. Now you might say, what are you talking about? Making an art, how can that be so helpful and so useful that my child is not going to get traumatized? And I tell you something. There is one very important factor that distinguishes between a person who develops PTSD and the person who doesn't, and that is taking an action, feeling power, feeling able of, being able to express feelings, thoughts, and actually do something, action. I give you an example. For instance, if a person is uh, an accident, and is trapped in the car and cannot do anything, cannot shout, cannot scream, cannot move, that person 99% is going to develop PTSD. Versus if the person who is trapped in an accident can open the door, force himself or herself out, shout, scream, cry, run, and shout for help, this person is not going to develop PTSD. Why? Because there is an action involved. And the action is not necessarily running away. Talking is also an action. Expressing feeling is also an action. Now, how is this all show themselves in an art making for a child? When a child is doing art, she is engaging her hands, her thoughts, and then throughout the art making, she talks, or the parent engages with the child to talk. And when the child has been exposed to traumatic experience like what's happening right now, which is looting and riots, which is extremely scary, and the parents could have not been able to shield her, then the child automatically will express it in her artwork. She probably makes some characters in her art, some chooses colors that are dark, or helicopters, or bad guys, good guys, and then in this activity you can join her and ask her questions, or while you're doing your own art activity. It opens up the conversation, and it is very non-invasive. Sometimes we ask children, tell me what's going on, how are you feeling? They don't say anything. You just see that they are scared and they shout and they cry, but they cannot put it on words. So when you ask the child to do something, let's make art, let's do something, you have to keep it completely open-ended. Have some material, basic material, doesn't have to be elaborate, and just make art. You take a piece of paper yourself, your child takes another piece of paper, and you can actually draw. If you see that the child does not go there herself, you also draw something that represents the situation right now, just to give permission for the child to do the same. And believe me, a lot of good things are gonna happen, because your child is gonna show what is in her mind in the artwork. She is gonna make the story of a good guy, bad guy, a good guy winning, a bad guy failing, and throughout that process you can ask and engage. What's going on here? Who is this? Who is that? And the child says, oh, this is such and such. And then say, is she scared? So the child is basically portraying herself in that character. We call it projection. So she puts it in her, and instead of talking to her, you are talking about the character on the paper, which is one step removed from the child, and therefore it gives permission for the child to talk about that. So I would definitely recommend for you guys to do that very, very simple activity, but it enables your child not to get to PTSD because the child is able to do something. She's in control of that pencil, she's in the control of that paper, she's the boss in there. And when she's the boss, she can heal, she has something to do, there is an activity in there. Now, in order also, I'm gonna go back, sorry, with the sentences I used. I'm gonna go back to the whole concept of trauma. When you engage your child with asking questions, the child verbalizes, the odds of having PTSD gets less. When you allow the child to express feelings, the odds of PTSD gets less. And how do you do that? You verbalize yourself. You express your feelings yourself. This way, you're giving permission for the child to do the same. And when the child does the artwork, it is a successful endeavor. There is nothing wrong, nothing goes wrong with an artwork. And when the child feels accomplished, then the odds of getting traumatized is much less. She makes sense of what's going out, at least in that piece of work. Now, art making is one thing, but I also mentioned it in another video of mine that doing something collaboratively with the parent is extremely important. That also empowers the child. Whatever gives power to your child decreases the trauma response, and that's what you have to do. Now, some things also become very powerful if they are healing in nature, if they're comforting, if at the same time they comfort the parent, which also I talked about it in the other video, which might be completely mundane and everyday job, but it is so profound. Doing a homework task, housework task, folding laundry. You might say, Azita, are you crazy? I'm telling you, this is very, very powerful because there is something soothing about it. There is order. You create order. It's symbolic. And you see the effect of your work right there. It means you have power. It gives a sense of power. And that's what's lacking right now in our society. And that's what we parents feel. And that's why we give it to our children. So when we feel powerful, at least in the mundane thing that we are doing in the household, we can resume that sense of strength, and also we can give it to our child by him or her doing the same thing. I hope this video is helpful for you. You can ask me any questions you have. I have my Instagram live on Mondays at 11 a.m. at Azita Sach 2020, and you can ask any questions you might have at that time. Be safe, and see you next time.